Morning. This year, the official opposition selected the Minister of Immigration to be held to account as part of Parliament's scrutiny of the government's financial plans. This process, which is referred to as the Committee of the Whole, is scheduled for Thursday night and would see the Minister be questioned by MPs. The Minister of Finance has committed to showing up for his full session, but to date, Lena Diab has not confirmed that she will attend or will attend the full 4 hours as she's required to do. So everyone knows that Lena Diab will eventually have to be fired because of her incompetence, but if she's so bad that the Prime Minister's office doesn't think that she can be questioned about her department's work, as is required by parliamentary procedure, then the Prime Minister needs to immediately fire her and replace her with someone who will. It's absolutely mind-boggling that the person in charge of one of the most critical files of the federal government, who gets paid $300,000 and has a taxpayer-funded driver, can't be bothered to show up for work. It's an embarrassing stain on the Prime Minister's reputation that he's getting away with this. And I understand why she doesn't want to come to work. In the last 2 weeks, there's been dozens of stories on, the immigration dumpster fire. I'm looking at non-citizens who have been given lenient sentences so that they can avoid deportation, mass uncovering of basically malpractice within her department. The terrorists are still here, limited removals, questionable guidance being issued out of an agency that she's responsible for. So she needs to show up for work, and so we're calling on her to do that. And if the minister won't show up for work on Thursday, seriously, the finance minister is showing up. Why can't she? I know she's terrible, but at this point, if a minister can't show up to answer questions in the House, given her track record, the Prime Minister needs to fire her. He needs to fire her anyways, but before Thursday would be nice. The other thing that I want to, as an Alberta MP, make a comment on is the Prime Minister's comments this morning. I just want to say this. The Prime Minister and the Liberals, they need some humility at this moment. The reality is that there is a lot of frustration in Alberta after 10 years of Liberal policy that essentially shut down the energy sector's growth and stymied a lot of projects. I want to be very clear. It was the Prime Minister who started an international banking alliance that shut down Alberta oil and gas. He has no right to wag his finger. That makes it worse, and he shouldn't be doing what he did this morning. Also, arguably, he screwed up on Brexit. He came out as part of Project Fear, and it backfired. I would strongly caution him from doing that again, and the tone that he gave this morning was not responsible in that regard. What we need to do right now is that the Liberals need to project hope, not fear. And to do that, they have to start addressing some of the deep and real frustrations of the people of my province. I want to be very clear. Some of the most patriotic Canadians I know are frustrated Albertans. They know that a strong Alberta means a strong Canada, and a lot of people don't understand why the Liberals spent a decade stymieing our economy for no reason. That weakened our entire country, and we're seeing that right now, right? At a time when we could be producing record levels of energy to meet the world's needs at a time of crisis. A decade of Liberal policy not only cost the people of my province jobs and prosperity, it cost our entire country that prosperity. It cost our entire country energy security. But it's not just about energy security. It's not just about these bills, which they need to repeal. It's also about equity. I believe that a strong Canada is when we are united in equity. And the reality is it's not all okay right now. The federal Liberals have treated my province for a decade like an afterthought. I've had many, famous quotes about this in the House of Commons over the years, and I've wrote documents warning that this would happen if the Liberals didn't take action to show some hope for that equitable Canada. So what I'm calling on the Prime Minister to do is he has no right to wave his finger. There's one person who can unite the country right now, and one job it is, and it's Mark Carney's, but he can't just wag his finger. He has to project real action. Tell Albertans when a shovel is going to go in the ground for pipelines. to tell Albertans when he's going to repeal these bills that are preventing investment in upstream development for our resources sector. When is he going to repeal the, the gun grab that has irritated so many Albertans and more? I mean, even if you walk down the street to the National Art Gallery here, is there a display of Western heritage art? No. It's things like that. So rather than wagging his finger, what the Prime Minister needs to do is to project hope. Conservatives are going to project hope. For a decade, I have fought against these policies. We will continue to do that. And again, I just want to reiterate that part of that is having his immigration minister show up for work, mercifully. Thank you.
Talking about his phrase, dangerous bluff, is that what's bothering you, or just the whole tone this morning?
I think that and I'll let my colleague make some comments in a minute, just quickly, before we, maybe PPH, if you want to do French
first. Thank you. Bonjour tout le monde. Donc, aujourd'hui, on est là, je suis avec ma collègue Michel Rempel, notre porte-parole en immigration, pour parler du bilan désastreux de Lena Diab, la ministre de l'Immigration, qui, depuis plus d'un an maintenant, nous a prouvé à maintes reprises qu'elle n'avait pas les capacités et les qualités nécessaires pour être ministre de l'Immigration. Mais là, cette semaine, dans le cadre de ce qu'on appelle l'examen par le Parlement des plans financiers du gouvernement, on a une rencontre, un comité plénier qui est prévu jeudi soir. Et en date d'aujourd'hui, on n'a aucune confirmation que la ministre de l'Immigration sera présente à ce comité-là qui est mis en place expressément pour elle, pour répondre à des questions pendant 4 heures de temps, des questions des parlementaires sur les dossiers qui touchent l'immigration. On peut comprendre que les libéraux, le gouvernement libéral ne veut pas envoyer cette ministre-là répondre à la question parce qu'ils savent très bien que les réponses sont aussi désastreuses que le bilan de la dernière année. Il reste qu'on a besoin de savoir ce qui se passe actuellement avec les dossiers d'immigration. Comme vous le savez, au Québec, actuellement, on a plus de 300 000 demandeurs d'asile qui sont sur le territoire du Québec, sous permis temporaire ou qui attendent des décisions, des clarifications de la part de l'immigration. Ça ne bouge pas. On a différents problèmes qui ont même été créés par des nouvelles lois, comme la loi C3 qui a été mise en place, qui fait en sorte que les enfants de personnes qui ont quitté le Canada depuis longtemps peuvent demander la citoyenneté canadienne. Là, aujourd'hui, on voit des gens qui sont aux États-Unis ou d'autres personnes qui sont dans le monde qui essaient de trouver des papiers pour démontrer une forme de filiation pour essayer d'avoir la citoyenneté canadienne de cette façon-là. On s'était opposé à ça parce qu'on trouvait que ça allait trop loin et on a la preuve aujourd'hui. Que fait la ministre de l'Immigration? Rien. Donc, on a besoin qu'elle soit là jeudi afin de répondre aux questions et on espère que le gouvernement, que le Premier ministre Carney entend et sait que la question de l'immigration au Canada est un enjeu prioritaire et on se doit d'avoir des réponses.
So just to your question, and thank you. Look, former Prime Minister Harper, who I will note under which we did not have a unity crisis, national unity crisis, would always say this: bring the light, not the heat. And in this circumstance, what I would really encourage the Prime Minister to do is to bring the light, not the heat. And how does he bring the light? Deal with the actual frustrations of Albertans, right, of which I've listed some. So I would just tell him that perhaps his tone was off this morning and to have a care to bring the light, not the heat.
Will we see him practically?
Will you be actively, Willie Tantam with the Western Standard, will you be actively campaigning for the Federalist side in Alberta?
So for a decade, I have fought here, and I've had a front row seat to watch the Liberal government actively campaign against my province, right? And actively pit regions against each other. I have always campaigned for a united Canada that is united in equity. And, when I talk about what the question is, like what the Liberals need to do, it is the Liberals who need to do this. So I'm going to continue as I have for a decade. And, these are the exact remarks our party leader gave this week. We are going to push the Liberals to address the problems so that Canada can be united in equity. Thank you.
So Mark Carney and Danielle Smith basically lay out a timeline for construction to begin on a pipeline. A day later or so, Danielle Smith comes out and announces this referendum question. I guess I'm wondering, clearly that wasn't enough to stop the referendum question from happening.
Yeah, but there's no shovel in the ground, Date. I disagree with you.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm asking. Like, what more do you want to see him do?
I mean, look, there's several things. First of all, on the same day that they made an announcement to look at a project maybe sometime and maybe give it an approval, we had other countries announce that they were going to build an entire pipeline like the Emiratis did on the same day in that period. So, why wouldn't they just designate it in the national interest on day one? Why does it have to wait 3 months? He needs to give that pipeline approval the permit the day that that proposal comes in. Those are the sort of assurances we need to hear. And more so, we also need to make sure that there's production to fill the pipeline. So that means repealing these laws, which has stymied investment and jobs, not just for Alberta, but for the entire country. It's not just Albertans that work in the energy sector, right? It's not just Albertans that benefit. Like, literally, the Liberals have campaigned against the entire country for a decade by shutting off access to our natural resources. But I want to be very clear, too, it's not just about that, right? As an Albertan, what I can tell you, sitting in the House of Commons, which has made my blood boil for a decade, is watching the flippancy in which they thought that they could just pit region against region and think that everything was going to be okay, right? And then pointing the finger at my province this morning after doing that. That is not what we need in leadership right now. We need calm, hope, not the fear-based campaign that he was known for in Brexit, not political maneuvering, actions, results to address the frustrations that, frankly, Conservative MPs have been raising for a decade.
It seems that Tim Hortons is trying to, move away from its reliance on temporary foreign workers by launching a campaign to hire more local workers. I'm wondering if you think it was time and if other restaurants should do the same.
So you're talking about temporary foreign workers. Yes, I'm sorry. Have to take a kick at humor once in a while. Look, I read the articles and the statements that chain made, and they're still asking for temporary foreign workers, right? The Conservative Party's position has been twofold. First of all, we know that there's a youth jobs crisis. We know that there's a lot of Canadians who are out of work. What we've been pushing the government for is better labour mobility strategies, skills training to match and make it easy to facilitate Canadians to move to where the jobs are, right? So we need that type of work, number one. And number two, that's why we're calling for the abolition of the temporary foreign worker program and replace it with a standalone program for seasonal agricultural labor that's legitimately hard to fill. But I will say this, like, I think it's, oftentimes in opposition, people, you think, well, what do you do? What's, is it worth? I think that and I want to thank all of my colleagues in the Conservative caucus who've been united on this issue, asking for better labour mobility strategies, pushing against the Liberals' reckless immigration policies, because I think we did move the needle on this issue and we're going to continue to push the government on it.
The referendum, should the House of Commons consider invoking the Clarity Act on this false question?
Look, right now all I know is that there's a lot of frustrated Albertans who want some clarity from the federal government on what they're going to do to bring the light on these issues. So I'll just refer you to my comments. What I would like to see from the Prime Minister is clear action on the irritants that I mentioned earlier.
Do you have some sympathies for the separatist side in Alberta?
Look, anybody who there's members of all political stripe who represent Alberta right now, right? Anybody who represents a riding in Alberta has a fiduciary responsibility to listen to constituents who have concerns, who have frustrations, who have fears. And there's a lot of people in the province right now who are, just don't understand why the federal Liberal government abandoned them for a decade, right? So it's my job as a representative in the House of Commons to push the government for solutions and for action, which is why myself, my colleagues, and credit to my colleagues from all, I'm standing here with my colleague Pierre, from Quebec. We have stood together through tough issues and coming up with united positions that will result in a united Canada, right? I don't see that from the Liberals. And I would just, again, I watched the Prime Minister make these comments this morning and I was like, got to do better than that.
Non, mais là, j'ai pas entendu, mais ce que j'en sais de la part de ma collègue, c'est que le premier ministre n'agit pas d'une façon à faire en sorte de garder le pays uni. Au contraire, les politiques libérales depuis les 10 dernières années, on le sait, ont été désastreuses pour l'unité canadienne. Puis là, aujourd'hui, on voit que Mark Carney ne fait pas ce qu'il faut pour apaiser la tension en Alberta, d'arriver avec vraiment des solutions qui font en sorte que les Albertains vont dire « OK, c'est bon, on va dans la bonne voie ». C'est pas ce qu'il fait. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'à chaque fois, on a des tensions qui sont créées, que ce soit en Alberta ou parfois au Québec. C'est ça qui crée des mouvements qu'on ne veut pas avoir. C'est pour ça qu'on demande de prendre des mesures qui sont efficaces, qui font en sorte vraiment qu'il y ait des projets qui se construisent, que ce soit clair pour tout le monde. Et Mark Carney n'agit pas de cette façon-là actuellement.
Do you
Merci.
Sur la clarté, est-ce que ça apaiserait les tensions ou ça les augmenterait?
Parce qu'on, pour l'instant, là, ce qu'on sait, c'est qu'on est dans une situation de tension en Alberta. Il y a même des mouvements au Québec encore qui parlent de référendum alors qu'on ne devrait pas être là. Nous, ce qu'on dit, c'est qu'avec un gouvernement responsable, comme les conservateurs, on a l'habitude d'agir ou qu'on a agi pendant les 9 ans qu'on était au gouvernement, il n'y avait pas de tension au niveau des provinces, il n'y avait pas d'histoire d'avoir des référendums. À chaque fois que les libéraux sont en place, on se ramasse dans des situations qui amènent à avoir une division du pays. Donc, pour nous, ce qu'on demande, c'est de se calmer et à Mark Carney de prendre des décisions qui font en sorte que les Albertains sont satisfaits, que les Québécois sont satisfaits, qu'on puisse vivre en harmonie. Merci.
Show up for work, Lena.
Chair, what do you make the Alberta referendum? Should Parliament have a say in this?
Well, the Alberta referendum is going to be a referendum held for Albertans, and the Premier's made her position very clear on that. The sooner this is over with, the better, because frankly, it's going to go one way. We all know which way it's going to go. So get this thing done and over with. It's just a question of whether there should be a referendum, and I know where the majority of my constituents lie on this. So, frankly, get it over and done with, and move on with the things we need to fix in order to make this whole country work a lot better.
Are you worried about a private sector proponent possibly stepping forward if they want to build a pipeline when there's this question of whether Alberta is going to be a part of Canada? Are you worried about the Prime Minister's ability to track someone or the Premier's ability to track someone for that project?
Well, it's a peripheral question at the end of the day. What we're talking about right now, first of all, is a referendum and just getting over the potential uncertainty that might come from that. We actually haven't seen that uncertainty as far as business investment goes to this point in time. But no matter what, you've got to get a pipeline built to the coast. And making that path as clear as possible for Albertans and for the proponents that are going to actually build that is something this government has to do a lot better at than it's done so far.
Why do you think we've seen Western alienation sentiment flare up in recent months? What do you attribute that to?
I wouldn't say it's recent months. I say it's accumulated over the last decade and a bit. And that's just a matter about the role each government plays in our confederal arrangements here, our Constitution. So if you actually put it forth to people that effectively which government should be in which lane here, and let's make it more clear, make sure that we understand what those rules of Confederation are and how each government fulfills their roles effectively, I think people will be a lot happier.
Why is this something you're suggesting Alberta needs to get over sooner rather than later on this referendum question?
Well, like I say, the question isn't actually a referendum question. The question is whether we should have a referendum.
Yeah, sure.
So whether we should have a referendum, okay, most people are going to say no, we don't. We need to fix things here at this level. The Premier's got her own jobs to do, but there's a lot of things to do in Confederation. We want to make sure we get back to the issues on our agenda that are actually going to make a difference for Canadians.
How do you know most people are going to say no though?
Well, I've seen the polls, but I also know door to door. As door to door in a neighborhood in Calgary on the weekend, I guarantee you it's like, yeah, let's get over with that. We all know how we're going to vote.
Why won't you vote?
I think it's quite clear.
Why are you voting now? What are the reasons that are driving that?
Why am I voting?
Yeah, no, against, or I guess keeping Canada together. Why are you voting now?
Well, I think we need to come to this House, you better serve the country here. This is our job, to serve our constituents and build a better Canada going forward. Thank you for the question.
What do you think about some of your colleagues in Alberta that represent rural constituencies? We asked them about, should Parliament have a say in the referendum or anything like that, and they're just absolute silence versus
well, you'll have to ask them. Right?
Yeah.
Do you think Ms. Smith was right to pose that question?
In your province?
Yeah. I think we need to have the referendum. When 700,000 Albertans write in, 300,000 for the separation side, 400,000 for the stay side, I think that it demands the action of democracy. And I think until we address it, it will be like an itch that is not scratched, like an irritant. And I, for one, would personally like to put this behind us so that we can move forward as a province, one way or another. Of course, I will be campaigning for the Remain side, and I would urge my fellow Albertans to do the same, but I do feel we need to address this.
Do you think what the Premier has put in motion is addressing it? Because it's, as you know, it's not the referendum on the question, it's like a referendum on a referendum. So do you think the process the Premier has put in motion addresses it in the way that you're kind of talking about trying to see it addressed?
I actually think it's a very good solution because it leaves the door open for the actual referendum question, but is not the referendum question itself. So I feel as though it provides a medium and a path to resolution.
Why are you voting to remain in Canada? What's driving your sentiment or feelings behind that?
Well, it's my love behind the nation. Of course, Alberta has been a province of the Confederation since 1905. And I think that Canada works better with Alberta within it. We contribute a lot in terms of our natural resources, etc. But I also think that Alberta is better economically and for a strong Alberta to remain in Canada.
Vous pensez que c'est une bonne idée, ce référendum en français?
Oui, je pense que c'est vraiment une bonne idée parce qu'il y avait 700 000 personnes qui ont décidé que c'était assez important d'inscrire le nom sur une pétition pour avoir le sondage. Et pour moi, jusqu'au moment où nous avons le sondage, ça va être un irritant pour la province et aussi ça va rester avec nous comme un problème devant nous. Et je pense que nous devons faire quelque chose pour résoudre le problème.
Are there separatists in the Alberta caucus? Are there separatists in the Alberta caucus?
None that have revealed themselves to me. We are all firmly behind our leader Pierre in supporting the referendum and the stay in Canada.
What do you make of the Prime Minister's move? What do you make of the Prime Minister calling it a dangerous bluff?
I had not heard that he had referred to it as this. I'll have to give that some consideration. Excuse me, I'm late for question period. Thank you for your time. Merci beaucoup. À bientôt.
For coming back to scrum with us.
It's great to be here.
Anonymously to the Prime Minister's office regarding the rollback of environmental policies. Do you think that they should be speaking publicly about this?
Well, the Prime Minister said at the border tray to the Canadian public that if you don't have anything, sorry, let me rephrase that. The Prime Minister said at the border tray to the Canadian public that he doesn't want to hear from you if you're against his viewpoint. So for the Liberal backbench MPs, including cabinet ministers, what do you think will happen to them if they said publicly that they're opposed to Carney's agenda of dismantling the environment, of sidelining Indigenous rights, of threatening provinces and people who have a different point of view, of gaslighting environmental groups who's been demanding and calling for climate initiatives. And so is it a wonder that they would actually do this anonymously? This is the approach that Carney has taken, frankly, is not democracy. It is a authoritarian approach in Canada. This is what's happening. He's basically sending a clear message to Canadians and to his caucus that I don't want to hear from you unless if you agree with me.
But shouldn't they just resign and stay as independents? I mean, what do you make of the decision to stay within the Liberal caucus, given everything that's transpired?
Well, the first step that people will go through in a situation where there are disagreements or grievances is to raise these issues. They should not be afraid to speak publicly and speak truth to power. We are parliamentarians. We are elected by our constituents to represent their point of view and not just to toe the line of what the Prime Minister tells you what you can and cannot say and what you can and cannot think. And so this is what's happening right now. So the first approach would be to raise these issues and to say it publicly and not be afraid to do so. We saw this with Stephen Guilbeault. I think that is the reason why he resigned. He had no place, I think, in that cabinet to offer a different point of view, to raise climate issues and concerns. Right now, what is Carney doing? He is dismantling all the climate initiatives, all the major pillars that was promised and that Canada signed into during the Paris Agreement. And so right now, we are in a climate emergency. I am from British Columbia. We have experienced forest fires ongoing. Experts are now saying this will be the 4th consecutive year of extensive forest fires. This is what we can anticipate. And right now, what Carney is doing is turning his back on the environment, on the climate emergency. This from a guy who was the UN envoy for climate.
Have you heard from any Liberal caucus members regarding their concerns about, the rollback of these environmental policies?
We've just come back from a 2-week break, and so there are whispers, right? And people rightfully should be concerned. Canadians are concerned. I've been hearing from my constituents who are deeply concerned about what's going on. I've been hearing from Indigenous leaders who are deeply concerned, who has been deeply concerned, who are the defenders of Mother Earth. And right now, they're all being sidelined.
Would you say the Liberal caucus is divided?
I think that the Liberal caucus, particularly those who hold more progressive views, who has traditionally been aligned on the climate emergency concerns and wanting to advance that agenda in addressing it, are absolutely feeling extremely uncomfortable within this caucus. What's clear as day is that Carney is not a Liberal. Frankly, he is operating like a conservative, and I would argue that he's gone further than what Stephen Harper would have dared when he was the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I know that Manitoba's getting some chartered Super Puma helicopters for forest fires. Any thoughts about that?
Well, you know, certainly it's needed. It's no secret that last summer we had unprecedented wildfires. We still have evacuees that are in Winnipeg Centre, in fact, from other sort of events that have happened in northern Manitoba. That's certainly a step, but I still call on the federal government to provide support that I've been asking for months to make sure that evacuees who haven't been able to return home can live in dignity in the places where they're forced to reside at the moment.
What do you think about Liberal MPs who have sent a letter to the Prime Minister to ask for more action on environmental issues, to show their displeasure with the pipeline? Do you think they should be coming forward publicly?
Well, I would encourage them. I think, you know, if they're going to put forward a complaint, they should at least have the courage to say their names. In saying that, I mean, we've seen a backsliding on environmental protections by Prime Minister Carney like we haven't seen before in the middle of a climate emergency. I was just asked questions about, you know, solutions to deal with some of the results of the climate crisis. Instead of actually dealing with this government is backpedaling, you know, placating to the interests of corporations and premiers like Daniel Smith, who are planning to separate, instead of looking after the interests of all people across Canada.
Have you talked to any Liberal MPs who are uncomfortable with the Prime Minister's direction when it comes to environmental policy?
I haven't spoken to any directly, but I mean, we've heard them, you know, publicly, you know, very prominent Liberals, Lloyd very prominent former Liberal MP, Stéphane Dion. Stephen Guilbeault, in fact, has come out with serious concerns. I mean, this is happening inside of his own caucus because it is to be of concern. Not only are we backpedaling to commitments we've made internationally, but we're also backpedaling on Indigenous rights and things like modern treaties, where he is literally violating obligations contained in modern treaties to consult with impacted nations on any sort of constitutional shift, including those made to environmental laws.
Thanks, Ms. Gazan.
Thank you.
Did you sign the environmental group, the environmental letter?
No, I didn't.
Sure?
Yeah. No, I didn't. But,
you know anyone who did?
Sault Ste. Marie's playing its part, though. I mean, we're going from a coal-based process of making steel to electric arc furnace. It's like taking 1 million gas-powered cars off of the road. So, you know, we're, as a party, recognizing the importance of doing concrete actions on climate change, and I trust Mark Carney on that.
Is there so much division right now in your caucus over Mark Carney's environmental policies?
I don't think so. We're Liberals. We always have these discussions. There is a big tent, and it's very, very big, and we continue to have these conversations.
What?
And at the end of the conversation, we have better policies.
Why aren't your colleagues speaking out publicly? Opposition MPs are accusing Liberal MPs of being scared of Mark Carney, to have a dissenting voice.
I've never heard that. No, I'm speaking right now, so I don't. I just know we're taking concrete actions, and we have done a substantial amount of important work in concrete actions to fight climate change, and we'll continue to do that while we still continue to move, you know, the economy forward. Especially after the Trump tariffs, it is so important. I mean, Algoma Steel is a perfect example. I mean, right now we're focusing on our sovereignty and our security, and Algoma Steel is going to be the backbone of that because we're the only place that make plate for ships, armored vehicles, and we have to really look after our sovereignty and also our workers as well as our environment. They're all hand in glove.
Do you see the letter? Have you seen the letter?
No, I don't think so. I think that it's really, really important to recognize that provinces and territories are a part of Canada, not apart from Canada. And there's a whole vast spectrum of different regions. And quite frankly, I enjoy it. I enjoy these conversations. I think that these open and very important conversations continue to happen. And I'll continue to support both the environment and the economy because we can do it.
Do you want a letter? Do you want a new letter expressing concerns over Mr. Carney's approach to the environment to the PM? Were you one of those MPs?
Any letters that go to the Prime Minister from any of the caucus is internal and confidential. And so anyone who leaked a letter that was meant to be internal, that's a breach of caucus trust. And, for anyone to speak on something that's supposed to be internal, that's a breach of trust too. And I don't want to do that.
Do you want to do the letter? Did you sign the
Once
letter?
again, any letters that were signed by any letters go from caucus chairs all the time to the Prime Minister. As in chair of Indigenous Caucus, I've written letters that outline here are some of the things we'd like to see, here are the cautions. They're all internal and meant to be confidential.
On that, sorry, do you support your pipeline to the West Coast?
The letter there, which letter? Mr. Powlowski, the 14, the environment group?
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me?
Whatever letter wasn't me.
Do you have any concerns about Mark Carney's record on the environment?
On his record? No. I think he is what he is. He was the UN ambassador on climate change. I think he's genuine in his beliefs regarding the environment and climate change. And no, I think he's a pragmatic guy. There are other things he wants to do as well, but I don't think he's forgotten the environment.
Do you think the deal on the pipeline hurts the government's credibility when it comes to reaching environmental targets?
Well, some people are not going to be happy with it. I agree. I don't know the particulars of the deal yet. It hasn't come about yet. I don't know if it is going to come about, so.
Have you heard in your caucus people who are not happy about it?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be people who aren't happy with it, so.
Is the caucus?
What's that?
Is it dividing your caucus?
Oh, well, I can't talk about caucus, but, we are a Big Tent party. There are people on all sides of pretty well every issue, and so I'm sure there's going to be people who oppose it. What's that?
It doesn't sound united if there's people on all sides.
Well, I think it's better that you have a party where you have a government that listens to all sides about various issues, and I think in life there are not too many black and white things. There's a lot of things where there's areas of gray, and there's room for discussion, and I think that's the way it should be. And I think a good government listens to both sides and makes sometimes difficult decisions.
Do you want to see a new pipeline built to the West Coast?
I frankly haven't thought about it enough. It would depend on, and I think our government's repeatedly said that you need to have Indigenous buy-in, you have to have Indigenous agreement, you have to have provincial agreement. So if we get all those things, then I don't have any problem with it personally.
What do you make of Danielle Smith's new referendum in October related to sovereignty?
I don't know enough about the particulars in the court decision as to why it struck down the other one and what she's trying to do and how that gets around the court. So my opinion probably isn't worth much.
Right now there is a pretty slim majority that the Liberals hold. Do you think...
Slim?
Well, 3 seats.
Wow.
From by-elections. So do you...
It's much better than it looked before.
Fair, but do you think the Prime Minister right now is at risk of losing any caucus members over this pipeline deal?
Oh, I don't think so. No. No.
When does the main committee expect to finish its report?
We expect to have the report out by the beginning of the summer.
By the beginning of the summer?
Yeah, before we break.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that's a necessity. We need to do that.
Why is it necessity?
Well, just because of the timeline. I mean, the sunset clause is March of next year. There's a legislative process. We have to go through the House and it has to go through the Senate. And so I think it's important we deal with this issue.
Do you think Mr. Carney is open to an indefinite delay on the expansion?
I can't speak for Mr. Carney.
Okay.
Thank you.
C-22. There's a backlash against C-22. Do you share the concerns of corporate Canada towards C-22?
Well, the reality is we need to get the best bill possible. The Liberals have really dropped the ball when it comes to their drafting, when it comes to explaining this bill. They've tried to ram it through committee, which is exactly something that they've been doing with their newfound majority. 3 meetings not enough. I've encouraged the minister, speak very clearly when it comes to encryption. Speak very clearly when it comes to metadata. Those are the types of things that we as Conservatives will be pushing for. I look forward to litigating those things at committee. Yes, we've drafted over.
Just 5 seconds while these trucks get out of the way. What sort of amendments do you want?
Well, we need to ensure that the amendments are focused on things like encryption. The government is using these cute phrases like encryption neutral. Canadians want to know that their end-to-end encryption won't be targeted. They need to know what sorts of metadata are going to be kept, why are they going to be kept, for how long, and what types. Those are the types of things that government should be easily able to answer, and they failed so far.
As an MP, are you comfortable having this information?
Good afternoon. I'm Jaime Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, also the Shadow Minister for Crown Indigenous Relations for the opposition. We just came out of a vote in the House of Commons with the Liberals had a chance to stand up for private property owners, not just in the city of Richmond, but across Canada as well, and they failed to do so yet again. In the Cowichan decision, the government failed in 2018 to stand up for private property rights. Directive 14 still exists on the government mandate, directing their lawyers on how to argue the case, which unfortunately, under this mandate, includes not arguing for private property rights. We've had cases in the city of Richmond where there's uncertainty within business owners, property owners, where the province had to come in to backstop those individuals to allow them to obtain a loan and a mortgage. This was an opportunity for the Liberals to set things right. We had a number of objectives outlined in our motion here today, and they voted against it. And here I will turn over to the local Member of Parliament, Chakao from Richmond, Marpole.
Yeah, I'm Chakao, MP for Richmond Centre, Marpole riding. I'm really disappointed how the Liberals voted today. I think the Liberals are still in denial, denying that the impact of the ruling on the people are real and immediate. People in Richmond and beyond are having difficulties in selling their homes or getting a mortgage because of the uncertainty of their property rights. The Liberals are also in denial that they have failed to protect private property rights in the litigation. And they also failed to admit that by giving the directives to the lawyers, they failed that defending what people should have the rights. And in Richmond, you know, we have seen the impact immediately. It's real. And at the same time, today's motion of the Conservatives are basically not is non-partisan, because we are also asking for an all-party committee to work on a solution. But this is also being denied by the Liberals. I'm really, really disappointed. And I think the people in Richmond will feel the same way, and they will also feel being abandoned by the government.
I'm Jeff Kibble, Member of Parliament for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford. Extremely disappointed by the Liberals' vote today, not supporting our motion. We're seeing on Vancouver Island increased division, increased economic uncertainty, and it's damaging reconciliation. And it's a failure of leadership of the Prime Minister. It should be his job to the people that he serves to bring them together, to show, to have unity and division and economic certainty, and he's failing on all three of those fronts. And so a very disappointing result today. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark Dalton, Member of Parliament for Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge. This was a very important vote, not only for the particulars with Cowichan and the issues happening there, but actually for all British Columbia, because all of BC, there are claims. So that's the concern. And the concern is this. This sets a precedent, because never before have we had a judgment ruling that rights and titles are superseded by Indigenous, by First Nations. And so this is concerning to all British Columbians. And the Liberals just kind of swatter away, saying, oh, it's no big deal. Well, it is a very serious deal. Now, maybe not right Well, right now, yes, because it's impacting those in that particular area, but the uncertainty that it's causing, the uncertainty it's causing among the business community, investors, the entire economy. British Columbia has lost approximately 45,000 jobs since January. So this is a big issue. And the Liberals are just poo-pooing it, and they need to take action, and they should have voted with us this time.
Yeah, well said.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Industry is raising some issues. What issues do you have with C-22, if any?
Well, I mean, it's the ministerial orders are very broad. They're very secret. And I think there's a lot of concerns from Canadians about how the government could potentially use these broad new powers to undermine privacy. Encryption is a major issue. You know, we know these systems are very sophisticated. We know bad actors want to hack into these systems. We saw with the Salt Typhoon hack that happened in the United States, it was actually revealed that the American government's requirements on tech companies actually were exploited by bad actors to hack into systems. And so we need to ensure that we protect the validity of these, the integrity of these encrypted systems to ensure that, you know, Canadians' critical data and privacy is respected.
Everyone usually has a few amendments back to the line that they'd like to see the NPO. I assume you've got some ideas of what you want to see in C-22.
Well, I think you can be sure that we're going to be putting forward some very strong amendments to limit government power and to ensure that you know, we protect the privacy of Canadians. You know, but it looks like the government's open to bringing some amendments forward, so it'll be interesting to see you know, what sort of feedback they've taken from, you know, these frankly very high-profile hearings that we've had at committee, and very strong claims being made by civil liberties, by industry. I'll be very interested tomorrow's meeting. We have some really great witnesses coming forward, and I'm really interested to hear what they have to say about this.
My last question is, the Conservative Party has long had a link to libertarians in some parts of Canada who, you know, this sort of bill would be quite concerning to. Is there anything you're hearing from the public, from your party supporters about this bill?
Yeah, we're hearing from folks that are very concerned. You know, there's a lot of distrust and a lot of fear of government overreach, and so we need to make sure that we hold this government accountable. Thank you.
The Liberal Party has a leadership race on, and once this truck goes by, it looks like Nav Baines is joining the race. What do you think?
Nav Baines is a great colleague and friend, and I think he'll do the Ontario Liberal leadership race justice. He'll run a good campaign, I hope, and yeah, I hope to see him as our next premier.
I appreciate it. Navdeep Baines is running for Ontario Liberal leader. What do you think about Navdeep Baines' candidacy?
Well, it's a shock. I had no idea he was interested in it, but I guess now that Nate's maybe not interested in it, he's decided to take a run at it. It'll be very interesting. He's a very colorful guy.
True.
He'll bring a lot of excitement to a very dull race, maybe.
The Ontario Liberal race is seeing Navdeep Baines joining in. You're an Ontarian. What do you think? Could the Ontario Liberals see some life in the race with Navdeep Baines?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's good to know there's somebody in the race, I suppose. They need a leader after all, so I wish them all well in their debates.
Let's just focus in on you, Ms. Gould. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Navdeep Baines, noted GTA, former MP, banker. What do you think about him running?
I think it's fantastic. I encouraged him to run. I think he's, you know, he's a fantastic politician, but he also has a great background in business. He has, you know, a really great story to tell, and I think he's ready to lead for Ontario, and I think he's ready to put the province back on track.
Do you think there's anyone else who could come up against him, or are you hearing of other people?
I'm not hearing of anybody else at the moment, but that doesn't mean that there isn't someone. But no, I'm really excited that Nav is in the race, and I think he's going to do great things for the Ontario Liberal Party, and more than that, I think he's going to do really great things for the people of Ontario. And look, we're at a critical time. We need someone with his background, You know, he's got a background in the auto industry, he has a background in banking, he has a background in communications. We're at a critical moment in our time. Ontario is such an important part of Canada, and the Ontario economy is in a challenging place. So we need someone who not only understands the Ontario economy, but also is going to focus on things like healthcare and education, and making sure that, you know, when you go to an emergency room, you get seen in a timely manner, that your health is a priority, that our kids are getting the best education in the world. So no, I'm thrilled that he's running, and I think he's going to do a great job.
Good to see you.
Thanks.
And there is a group from Las Vegas who is looking at land outside the Halifax airport for a large stadium and hotel complex. Could federal money be going into such a plan, do you think?
Oh, look, we've not been approached at all by that, but I'll tell you, people are excited in Nova Scotia about the possibility of that, and my understanding, it's all private business. There's been absolutely zero ask from any level of government, so it's actually exciting.
But who would actually play there? Would a CFL team play there? Would I believe the Wanderers don't want to come out of the grounds there downtown.
Well, listen, Halifax, Nova Scotia is a growing city and a growing province, and it's not unprecedented. There's been people for many years, many decades over the time that have been calling for something, so it's actually exciting for our province to be receiving private businesses and entrepreneurs that are interested in this. We'll wait and see.
So Andy Fillmore is not calling you up saying, hey, help us out, extend those sewer lines? Or what?
No, not at the moment. I think we'll wait and see, but it's an exciting opportunity.
Thanks for stopping.
Thank you.